Hello pool spawners, this is Rob with Inyopools. Today I'm going to explain how to find the correct replacement spa pump. The first thing you can try is looking for a model number or part number on the pump label. In this case, you'd take this model number or this part number, go to Inyopoolscom, put in those numbers in the search box, and hopefully it'll bring back a result. Now, the pump numbers are going to be different from the numbers on the motor specification label. So on this one, if you took this model number and put it in our website, it'd bring back a motor, which would be different from the complete pump. It's not always going to be that simple because you have old pumps where the label is either missing or faded, or if you do find a number, it doesn't cross-reference directly to anything. So in that case, you'd go to the next step, which would be identifying the motor as well as the wet end. Okay, we're going to start identifying the specifications of the motor, and the ones you want to look for are horsepower, voltage, speeds, frame, amps, and service factor. And as you can see on a lot of spa pumps, the horsepower or service factor are left blank. In this one, they list the total horsepower, which is 0.95, so we'd round that up to 1. And then you can see the voltage is 115. Typically it's going to be 115 or 230. And then there's an amp rating, and the RPM is going to tell you the speed. So this is 3450, which means it's a single speed pump. A dual speed would say 3450/1725. And if you notice over here, it says horsepower 1.0 SPL. That's a special rating. Now this one's pretty accurate, but on some you might see some that says horsepower 5.0 SPL and it's on a small spa, and we know from experience that that's not accurate. In that case, you'd want to look at the model number on the motor specification label, or there might be a catalog number. And what you do is you take that model or catalog number, put it in the search box on Inyopoolscom, and it'll give you back the result of a motor that matches, and then from there you can base the horsepower and all the other specifications on that. Okay, after you've identified the motor, you're going to want to identify the wet end, which is this piece that's connected to the motor. And what you want to identify is first the frame, the port location, and the port size. As I mentioned in the motor specifications, we want to identify the frame, and on this one it was easy because 48Y is listed there. It's typically either going to be 48Y or 56Y. But if there's no frame listed, what you can do is measure between the through bolts here. So there's 4 through bolts that connect the motor to the wet end. So if you measure the distance, and from bolt to bolt, if it's less than 4 inches, it's going to be 48Y. If it's more than 4 inches, it's going to be 56Y. The next thing you're going to identify is the port location. What we're looking at here is a center suction port with a side discharge. This is probably the most common. Besides that, if this were centered and over the suction port, that would be considered a center discharge. And these ports, this discharge port can be rotated horizontally if needed. There are some other types of port locations. The center or the suction port might be located at the bottom, or it's possible that it would be coming out of the top if there was a strainer on top. But again, what you're looking at here is probably the most common, whether it be side or center discharge. Alright, so next we're going to identify the port size, and this is what's confusing to a lot of people, because they'll measure their ports and that won't match up with the description. So for example, this is sold as a pump with a 2-inch suction and a 2-inch discharge port, but when you measure it, it's 3 inches outside diameter. So what you can do is take the measurement and subtract 1 inch, and so that'll tell you that this is for 2-inch ports. And the same on the discharge. There's some cases where the suction side might be a little larger than the discharge, so you want to make sure you measure both. So if this were a pump with 1.5-inch ports, you'd measure this, and that measurement would be 2.5 inches. Again, you measure the outside diameter, subtract 1 inch, and that'll tell you what the port size is. for some reason your old pump is missing, or you moved into a place that just, it doesn't have one, what you can do is look at the PVC plumbing, and usually every foot or so it's going to be labeled 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 2.5 inch, and then you get a pump that matches that. And if it's not labeled on the plumbing itself, what you can do is measure the inside diameter of the PVC, and that'll tell you whether it's 1.5 inch, 2 inch, or 2.5 inch. And once you've identified the motor specifications as well as the wet end, you can go to Inyopoolscom, go to the spa pump section, select a manufacturer of your choice, whether it be Waterway, Aquaflow, or another manufacturer, and then scroll through the list and try and match up your specifications. For example, on this one, we know that it was 1 horsepower, 115 volt, single speed, 48Y frame with 2 inch ports, and it was a center suction side discharge. So then we would just go through the pumps and look for those same specifications. If you have trouble matching up your pump, or you have a question, anything pool or spa related, leave a comment down below or visit us over at Inyopoolscom. Thanks for watching.